centuries old brick floor getting laid. So this was a bit that I've forgotten to show you from the previous video. This was me just roughly setting out how I was going to be laying the bricks. So apologies for that. If you've already seen the video that precedes this one, you see I've already made a start on the laying of these bricks. But that's the style anyway. So you've got a 45-degree angle within the room, and it takes the eye away from the fact that all the walls, none of the walls are level, right? So we're advancing quite well with the paving. You can see, or the tiling, or whatever you want to call it. You can see there are 1 or 2 gaps in between because, as I've said before, these bricks are not universally sized. They vary quite considerably considering the size of them. So they can be 1 or 2 centimeters shorter than some of the others. But it's not. Don't panic about things like that. It's not things like that are not the end of the world. Right. So I'm now at a stage where I'm looking to start laying into the area which was formerly a concrete base for the bathroom, but it will now form part of the kitchen, the new kitchen. So the area just to the right of where I'm working there will be the downstairs loo, and that will have a partition wall fairly shortly once the delivery arrives with the new rails and the uprights. So in the meantime, I'm looking to roughly lay out the area as much as possible in preparation for the many cuts that I'm going to have to do. Obviously, with it being 45-degree diagonal, you're going to have quite a few top triangular cuts, but I prefer to lay it in this fashion because I think it's nice. It's much more attractive than trying to run it to one of the square walls. You could pick one and then all the others would be out, and that would really notice when you look at the edges. You'd see that it runs out quite a bit. So with this, it really does hide the fact that nothing in this kitchen area is square. And just trying to work to one square edge on this would just be, I would think, it would be a disaster. So continuing on the laying of the bricks, quite a nice sort of coloration throughout. Varying tones of red will appear hopefully when it's all been cleaned up. And what I've done is, you can look into sort of the recess parts there have just been cleaned off, so that when I do come to put the cuts in, you haven't got the surface that you're going to have to re-clean. So it's always just keep scraping back this stuff. Gives you a certain amount of working time, but it's as well, just do as you go, just keep cleaning off. If you're not going to be directly laying into that area straight away, just take off the excess mortar for the time being and then come back to it later. I did put some lime, I did sprinkle some lime across the area where the concrete's been taken out. There were 1 or 2 sort of smallish roots in there, so I took those out as well before I recompacted it, and just put a little bit of lime down there, and hopefully that will deter any other further vegetation, certainly for the time being. And we'll see how we get on then. Obviously, once the kitchen's all sealed, it shouldn't be an issue for the future use. Continue on with this. There's something like 10 square meters worth of blocks that I've got, or bricks that I've got, which is quite nice, which I managed to salvage from the loft area, which had been laid up there for whatever reason, and it's quite nice to give it a second life. And obviously these would have been created sometime in the 1800s, the mid 19th century, which is incredible, really, considering they've lasted all that time. And they're fairly thin in section. They're around about 2.5-3 centimeters in thickness on average. Inch and a half, something like that. So it'd be interesting to see sort of wear and tear they take now that they're obviously in the loft. They wouldn't have been used a great deal at all, really. There wouldn't have been too much traffic on there. But now, with it being a kitchen, it's going to be a heavily trafficked area. So hopefully, when it's sealed, that'll be sufficient to hold everything well in place. I've just got to work out what I'm going to brush in between the joints prior to sealing it. In the UK, there's various products you've got for sealing between sort of the new paving slabs these days. Back in the day, it was always sand and cement, but since then, times have evolved, and there's various products on the market now, sort of silicone based, that you sort of brush in. It doesn't stain the pavement at all, and you brush off and you wet it down, and it holds in place. And if I can get hold of something like that, I can utilise to seal the joints prior to whatever I'm going to use as the final sealing coat on top of the bricks. And obviously there's a wee bit of cleaning to do as well, because as you'll see later in the video, some of these bricks were sort of painted a sort of strange sort of greeny colour. I have no idea why they were. So there will be, like I said, there will be a lot of cuts to be done, but with an angle grinder you can cut through these like a knife through butter for these to cut. The only thing that's slightly concerning will be, because you're going to have some smallish sort of triangular pieces presumably on the edges, that we don't lose too many of the edges of those pieces when they're laid, because they are quite a soft brick, in fact a very soft brick, to be honest with you. So make sure that there's plenty of mortar directly underneath there to really hold the little tiny bits of corner in place, so that people walking across it and that, you've not got if you've got a slight hollow beneath it, particularly on a cut piece like that, it'll have a tendency to want to crack with the weight. So I need to ensure that, like I said, the cuts that go in get really well bedded in, which they should be, and then that should hold them secure for another century and a half maybe. Somebody coming in the future looking at this hopefully will think, wow, the artisans of the day in the 21st century are quite something. It'd be interesting to see. Well, we'll never know, but it'd be interesting to see what the future holds as far as houses and stuff concerned. Such an important commodity to have, and becoming more and more difficult, particularly for the younger generations to be able to become homeowners themselves, which is a real tragedy, in my opinion, since I was able to buy my first house at the tender age of 21. At the time, house prices weren't silly, which they are now, seemingly throughout the most of the Western world. And I was very, very lucky in some respects to move to a country where you can still actually buy an affordable house for not a lot of money. Although this obviously needs an immense amount of work doing to it. And interestingly enough, when you buy a house, you're given a DPE, diagnostics report, all about it, and it tells you everything you kind of need to know about the house you're anticipating buying. And it also goes through the various steps you might have to take to get the rating up. So at the moment, the rating on this place is like a G, which is the worst. And ideally, you want A would be perfect, and I'm hoping for something like a C, which would be a decent rating. But anyway, it gives you all the price and everything else for what it would take to get it to an A rating. And on this one, this house in particular, it suggested you would have to spend something like €105,000 to get it to become an A-rated building. Now, even if you spent all of that money on top of the $15,000 that the house cost, you're never likely at this stage to recoup that, because the average house price in this area is around about €80,000. But it's interesting to see. I mean, they're almost talking about knocking it down and rebuilding it. But all the aspects you'd have to do, so you're changing all the windows to full double glazed, changing the doors to full double glazed, the amount of insulation that needs to be put throughout, interior and exterior, and everything else that goes with it. So never going to be spending that kind of money on this. Budget's around about €15,000 for the works. So adding that to the €15,000 that the house cost, including all the fees, no tax fees and taxes. That would bring the total spend to around about €30,000, which is probably about what, $35,000, or about 26,000 pounds. A lot of the pounds taken real battering recently. Talking August 2025. And I think it's about the lowest it's been for a long, long time. Gone are the days pre-Brexit when you could get €1.40 for a pound. We're down to about €1.14 now, which is makes a big difference when you're converting from pounds to euros. But such is life. Incidentally, when I first moved here, 2017, the petrol was around about €1 a litre, and it's varied in the 8 years I've been here. It's gone over €2, €2.20 a litre, and it's currently sitting around about €1.70 a litre. So it's a big increase, 70% increase over the course of 8 years. So again, as ever, I'm digressing from the job in hand. So continuing on with, I do like my little musings. So continuing on with this, I'm almost into section now, which is what was the old concrete. And you can see we're almost at the same level, which is quite nice. So when the bricks finish, and they'll be, or I'll just tidy up between where the concrete ends and where the brick ends with a bit of sand and cement, just to lock those tiles in place. And then you'll have the furniture for the kitchen, which are going to be the buffet. They're the two buffets which I bought, which are large chunks of wooden furniture, terrific, all in oak, all in really good condition, but terribly out of fashion as far as the French are concerned. They almost can't give these things away. And considering you're buying two huge bits of furniture, one for €40 and one for €50, and these things will outlast me, the house, and everything else quite easily. Fantastic, and they're fairly easy to change the look of, so that doesn't look quite as out of mode as they currently are, which is a pity, really, because people buy stuff from IKEA and other places, the flat pack stuff, which is really crap, to be honest with you. Chipboard and horrible. So to actually be using proper wood furniture is lovely. Right, so that will obviously take up some of the space of the flooring, so there'll be certain parts of the flooring you won't see. I imagine the fridge will go on the right-hand side there. I've got to consider things like washing machines and that, how I'm going to accommodate this. And then we're down onto the cutting side. So again, just put the straight edge along. You can see the two tiles against the walls. There's a bit of a gap in the centre there where the threshold is, where the sort of the front room is, the main living room is. Couldn't take it to there, because if you do that, if you take two tiles from there, then you're going to be cutting all the way along the two walls. So I'll just do some smallish cuts there just to close off that gap. So that will end up being 2.25 tiles there, but on the rest of the walls, it'll be two tiles. And it makes it quite a nice feature. So you've got a frame running all the way around, and then by the back door, I've just done a single tile. I thought that was sufficient. There you can see opens and shuts. And again, there'll just be a wee bit of mortar put into the front there just to close off that gap. So this is it. So this is the end of the day. So just wet it down a wee bit just to help with the adhesion of the adhesive, and you can kind of see the greeny colours of some of the bricks that were painted. But overall, and I put some boards down obviously for me to step on, etc. But I'm very, very pleased with where I've got to. So this was a sort of a full day's work, and then it'll be another full day, I'd imagine, to run the cuts in and run the tiles in and finish it off. Anyway, getting to the near the end of this video. Thanks again for watching, subscribing and liking.